I wanted to share a little bit of my lesson plan with you. So, as you can see, my lesson plan starts off with a chalk talk on the board and the students having a chance to, as a class, contribute to the conversation about why prayer matters and why we pray. After I set up an understanding that the students have really created for themselves about the purpose of prayer, I hope to ask and pose to the classroom what are the biggest problems with prayer. The answer that I'm really looking for is that prayer is not in our own words. Prayer is using somebody else's words to connect to these really deeply personal moments, to connect to a deeply personal relationship with God, relationship with self, or relationship with peoplehood and community. So the fact that it's in someone else's words poses quite a bit of a problem when it comes to our own ability to connect and to understand prayer. And I think that this is a theme that's really common, particularly in teens in the liberal Jewish world who have trouble connecting with liturgy and who often aren't encouraged to try and make attempts to connect with liturgy. The next part of the activity is the personal reflection. So on their own with Sidurim, the students will have a chance to answer some of the questions that I'll be posing. I'm not sure whether I want to write the questions on the board and have them sort of pull out a notebook or a sheet of loose leaf paper and answer the questions, or if I want to create a worksheet for them, or if this is going to be a part of a larger unit, maybe there's a work booklet that they'll be writing in. But the first question that they'll be addressing is what's missing for them in the Shemona Esrei. So things like what would you include if you could? At this point, we'll already have established that the Shemona Esrei, or the Amidah prayer, as we know it now, is about this personal connection and conversation with something bigger than yourself. So in these moments, what are we doing in these key critical moments of personal connection? And what's missing for us? What are the things that we wish were here? What are the things we wish we could read and say 3 times a day if the goal is to be personally connecting as unique individuals who are bringing our days and our lives with us into this prayer? And the second question I would ask is what bothers my students, or what they don't feel comfortable saying amen to, saying I agree to? What might they change if they could, or take out if they could? So after 10 minutes of doing some creative writing on that activity, I would invite the students to share with the class. And in this example, I might expect something like, for the question of what is missing for you from the Shemona Esrei, and what would you include if you could, I might expect an answer like, my family and friends are missing for me from the Shemona Esrei. When we say the bracha over healing, I want to be able to think about my grandmother or my aunt. I want to be able to think about maybe a whole group of people or a country that needs healing, or maybe something or someone who needs healing in a non-traditional sense. Maybe a spiritual healing. I want to be able to find the language for that. What bothers me, what might I not feel comfortable saying amen to? Maybe I don't feel comfortable saying amen to Vela Malshinin, this idea that this paragraph in the Amidah in the Shemona Esrei that asks God to destroy or kind of distract from the plans and devices of our enemies. So after giving them time to come up with those answers, 2 of those being examples, I would invite them to share with the class. Next, we would study the source sheet that I have from Tractate Yoma in the Talmud Bavli. And this is a text that, using their guided questions, they would be able to sort of come to the general conclusion that though Jeremiah and Daniel decide to omit words from the Shemona Esrei when we say Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor V'Hanorah, based on what Jeremiah and Daniel's actual experience was in the world, they decided to admit the words awesome and mighty. And then these people, these Anshe Knesset Hagdolah, these people who are of the Great Synod, these people who are great and thoughtful thinkers, decided that actually we shouldn't be able to just omit these words. We need to re-understand them. We need to reinterpret them. And in our reinterpretation, it's not necessarily about what we see God doing in the world, but it's about God's power and control and his self-control, to not have to sort of play puppet with everything on earth. And so this is an example of people who are interested in preserving liturgy and preserving language, and yet trying to re-understand it and reread it in order to fit their worldview. So by allowing students to work with Havrutin with this text, and to begin to answer some of these questions, they'll have the opportunity to hopefully come to some of those conclusions and to be able to see the value in maintaining liturgy, in maintaining tradition, in maintaining a framework, maintaining accountability, and yet also allowing our personalities and our backgrounds and our experiences and our voices to be infused into these words. The last piece, the closing assessment, would be that I would love for my students to each pick a part of the Shemona Esrei prayer, of the Amidah, that they struggle with, and I would ask them, they can use the same piece that they struggled with earlier on in class. Maybe they found going through the text a little bit more over and over again. This is also an opportunity for students to kind of have to be forced to go through the text. So maybe they've found something else that they're struggling with or that challenges them. And I would like them to rethink or infuse the liturgy with their own voice, and share how they might rethink or reinterpret the words. It might be that they say the words as a whisper, or think of the words in their head as a goal, as an ideal, as something they want to be able to maintain or achieve in the future. Or maybe it's a matter of rethinking the language entirely and what the language means entirely. So after this lesson, I do hope that my students will be able to see the value in praying using existing liturgy in order to retain the structure, accountability, and tradition, as I said, and yet I want to be able to show them that they can really find their own voice within the voice of our ancestors, by really understanding the text, having a deep understanding, and bringing themselves into the reading of the text. So I look forward to hearing your feedback and comments on the lesson. Thanks very much.